This was a tournament down in Brazil. So honestly, when you win, nothing about my cardiovascular level, I feel, and everybody else in this room.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you.
Early.
You got it. I'm gonna go warm up.
All right.
Mark Kerr making his debut.
My friend is funny. That's the truth.
We would like to start with the
Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson doesn't lose at the box office. That's been the unwritten rule for nearly 2 decades, a gravitational constant in Hollywood's chaotic universe. From Fast 5 to Jumanji to Black Adam, the man prints money. His Instagram posts have more engagement than some countries' GDPs. His tequila brand outsells legacy liquors. He is the human embodiment of commercial success. So when The Smashing Machine limped out of theaters in late 2025 with a catastrophic 21 million worldwide gross against a 40-50 million budget, the industry didn't just notice, it practically seized up. This wasn't a stumble, it was a crater. Johnson's biggest box office bomb ever, and it wasn't even close. The kind of financial disaster that ends franchises and tanks studio quarterly reports. Here's the twist, the movie's brilliant. Not good. Not interesting attempt. Brilliant. Venice Film Festival didn't hand Benny Safdie the Silver Lion for Best Direction out of pity. Critics didn't rave about Johnson's performance because they felt generous. Emily Blunt didn't deliver career-best work in a vanity project. This film is a raw, uncompromising character study that takes MMA's ugliest truths and refuses to blink. It's Raging Bull for the cage-fighting generation, filtered through the Safdie brothers' anxiety-inducing aesthetic. And it features a physical transformation from Johnson so complete, you'll forget you're watching The Rock. But audiences stayed away in droves. Why? Let's dig into that mystery, because understanding The Smashing Machine's commercial failure is key to appreciating its artistic triumph. First, the context. A24 released this film on October 3, 2025, following its world premiere at the A2000 Venice International Film Festival on September 1. Venice is where the serious Oscar players debut: Joker, Roma, The Shape of Water. It's not where Dwayne Johnson movies typically launch. Already, the dissonance was screaming. The Rock doesn't do art house. He does global 4-quadrant blockbusters. You can watch a Fast and Furious movie in Dubai, Des Moines, or Dakar and everyone gets it. Cars go fast. Vin Diesel mumbles about family. The Rock raises an eyebrow. Box office explodes. The Smashing Machine is the opposite of that formula. It's a 123-minute R-rated biopic about Mark Kerr, an MMA fighter most casual audiences have never heard of, chronicling his descent into opioid addiction and emotional collapse. There are no quips, no eyebrow raises. No, it's about family, speeches. Just pain, failure, and the grinding terror of watching a human body destroy itself for sport while the mind unravels in real time. This is Benny Safdie working solo for the first time without his brother Josh, and he brought the full Uncut Gems intensity. Handheld cameras that refuse to sit still, claustrophobic framing, sound design that makes your nervous system vibrate. The film doesn't want you comfortable. It wants you trapped in Kerr's spiral, feeling every bad decision and wasted opportunity. A24 knew they had something special. They positioned this as prestige cinema, a legitimate awards contender with mainstream star power. The Venice premiere was strategic, generate festival buzz, win some hardware, build critical momentum heading into award season. And it worked, sort of. Safdie took home that silver lion, beating out acclaimed directors in a competitive field. Reviews praised Johnson's vulnerability and Blunt's grounded performance. Trade publications called it fearless and devastating. Then it opened domestically and made 11.4 million total. Worldwide, it scraped together another 9.7 million internationally. For context, Johnson's Red One, also from 2024-25, grossed over 200 million worldwide despite mediocre reviews. His Black Adam pulled 393 million. Even his voice work in Moana contributed to a 643 million animated juggernaut. The Rock's brand means global box office, until suddenly it didn't. What happened? Multiple factors, and they're fascinating. The marketing couldn't square the circle. How do you sell The Rock in a movie where he's unrecognizable? Johnson gained and then strategically lost weight for the role, transforming his physique to match Kerr's wrestling build to addiction deterioration. He grew his hair out, adopted a completely different physical vocabulary. No signature moves, no cocky swagger. Marketing showed glimpses of this transformation, but trailers struggled. Showed too much grit. You lose the Johnson fanbase expecting fun. Showed too much Johnson charisma. You mislead art house audiences expecting Safdie's darkness. A24 threaded carefully, but the messaging muddled. The subject matter didn't help. MMA has a passionate fanbase, but Mark Kerr isn't Conor McGregor or Ronda Rousey. He is a cautionary tale from the sports outlaw era, the late 1990s and early 2000s, when MMA existed in legal grey zones, governed by loose rules and fewer safety protocols. Kerr was legitimately dominant in that window, winning tournaments and building a fearsome reputation. But his prime was brief, his decline ugly, and his story lacks a triumphant third act. The 2002 documentary, The Smashing Machine, from which this film takes its title, captured his struggles with unflinching honesty. It's a cult classic in fight circles, virtually unknown elsewhere. So you're asking mainstream audiences to buy tickets for a depressing sports movie about a fighter they've never heard of, starring The Rock, in a role that strips away everything that makes him The Rock. Directed by one half of the team behind Uncut Gems, Yeah Movie, many people found too stressful to finish. Released by a studio known for cerebral indies, rated R for drug use and brutal violence. That's not a pitch, it's a dare. The domestic number is brutal, 11.4 million. International added 9.7 million, bringing the worldwide total to 21.1 million. Against that 45 million budget, this is catastrophic. Rule of thumb, a film needs to gross 2.5 times its production budget to break even after marketing costs and exhibitor splits. The Smashing Machine needed 100.5 million minimum. It got a fifth of that. For A24, this stings but won't sing them. They're diversified, banking prestige and profits across their slate. But for Johnson, this is uncharted territory. His entire brand is built on being a sure thing. The guy who salvages franchises, opens movies globally, moves merchandise. One flop doesn't erase that, but it does something potentially more valuable. It proves he's willing to risk the brand for art. And that's what makes the Venice Silver Lion so significant. The jury at the 80th Venice International Film Festival awarded Safdie Best Director in a year stacked with auteur talent. That jury watched dozens of films from filmmakers at the top of their craft and decided Safdie's control over tone, performance and visual language was the best of the festival. That's not a participation trophy, it's the international film community saying this work matters. Safdie didn't just direct here, he wrote the screenplay, produced the film and edited it. That level of control is rare in studio filmmaking, even at A24. The Smashing Machine is his singular vision, and it shows. Every frame feels intentional. Every performance choice reflects a director who knows exactly what story he's telling and refuses to compromise. After years of splitting creative duties with Josh on Good Time and Uncut Gems, Benny is flying solo and the results are staggering. The casting is perfect, not in the Hollywood big names sell tickets way, but in the these are the only humans who could embody these roles way. Johnson as Mark Kerr is the headline, and we'll dive deep into that transformation later. Emily Blunt as Dawn Staples, Kerr's girlfriend and eventual wife, grounds the entire film. She's not the supportive sports wife cliche. She's a fully realized person with her own damage, her own needs, and her own breaking point. Their chemistry is uncomfortable and real. Two broken people clinging to each other because they don't know what else to do. The supporting cast pulls from the actual MMA world. Ryan Bader, a real fighter, plays Mark Coleman, Kerr's training partner and friend. Baz Rutten, an MMA legend, plays himself. Oleksandr Usyk, the heavyweight boxing champion, plays Igor Vovchanchin, one of Kerr's opponents. This isn't stunt casting, it's texture. These fighters know the world intimately. They understand the physicality, the locker room dynamics, the specific psychology of stepping into a cage. Their presence adds authenticity that no amount of acting training could replicate. A24 produced and distributed, which immediately signals intent. A24 doesn't make crowd pleasers, they make films that haunt you. Moonlight, The Lighthouse, Everything, Everywhere, All at Once, Uncut Gems. They are the studio that lets filmmakers be weird, be challenging, be uncompromising. When they signed onto the Smashing Machine, it meant Safdie had full creative freedom. No studio notes demanding Johnson smile more or add action beats. No test screening mandates to soften the ending. This is pure, uncut filmmaking. The budget, 40-50 million, is substantial for A24 but modest by mainstream standards. That bought Safdie time, locations, a strong crew, and the resources to shoot MMA fights that feel genuinely dangerous. The fight choreography here isn't Hollywoodized. It's ugly and exhausting, shot in a way that emphasizes the toll on the human body. You're not meant to cheer, you're meant to wince. Production took place over several months in 2004, with filming locations capturing the unglamorous reality of late 90s MMA. Dingy gyms, sparse hotel rooms. The film's visual palette is muted and harsh fluorescent lights, washed out colors, graininess that suggests documentary footage. Safdie's aiming for verisimilitude and he achieves it. This doesn't look like a movie. It looks like reality, and reality is grimy. The R rating was inevitable. The film doesn't shy away from drug use, showing Kerr's opioid addiction in unflinching detail. The violence in the cage is brutal and prolonged. The emotional breakdowns are raw. There's no way to tell this story honestly and get PG-13. A24 embraced the rating, knowing it would limit the audience but protect the film's integrity. So here's what we've got, a Silver Lion winning film directed by one of contemporary cinema's most exciting voices, featuring transformative performances from two megastars, telling a true story about American masculinity's toxic contradictions, produced by the studio with the best track record for audio-driven cinema, and it bombed spectacularly. That failure tells us something important about where we are culturally. Audiences say they want originality, but they pack theaters for fast X. They claim to respect dramatic risks, but they skip challenging films. The Rock spent years building a brand as the reliable action star, and the moment he steps outside that lane, really steps outside it, committing to something difficult and dark, his audience doesn't follow. But films like this aren't made for opening weekend, they're made to last. Raging Bull wasn't a huge hit in 1980. Fight Club flopped theatrically in 1999. The Shawshank Redemption barely made its money back. These films found their audiences slowly through word of mouth and cultural persistence. The Smashing Machine will likely follow that path, a box office disappointment that becomes a critical touchstone. The film people discover years later and wonder why nobody showed up. We're going to walk through this film carefully, pulling apart how Safdie constructs Mark Kerr's tragedy, how Johnson and Blunt inhabit these damaged people, and why the technical craft elevates this beyond typical sports biopic territory. We are going to examine the real Mark Kerr story and how the film adapts that history. We are going to explore the late 90s MMA world, the Wild West era before regulation, before mainstream acceptance, when the sport was equal parts athletic competition and freak show. This is a movie about pain, physical pain, emotional pain, the pain of potential squandered. It's about addiction as escape and relationship as life raft. It's about fighting as the only language some men know, even when it's killing them. And it's about Benny Safdie proving he doesn't need his brother to make you feel like you're having a panic attack in the best possible way. Before we get into what Safdie did with the story, you need to understand who Mark Kerr actually was. Not the movie version. The real human being who fought in cages when most of America thought cage fighting should be illegal. Mark Kerr was born in 1968 in Toledo, Ohio, which is exactly the kind of Midwest industrial city that produces fighters. Not the glamorous kind, the kind who scrap because it's the clearest path out. He wasn't some natural born warrior with a chip on his shoulder. He was a wrestler, a really, really good one. At Syracuse University, he was an NCAA Division I standout, the kind of athlete who understands leverage and positioning and how to impose his will on another human body through technique rather than rage. That wrestling background is crucial. In the late 1990s, MMA was still figuring out what worked. You had brawlers, karate guys, Brazilian jiu-jitsu practitioners, boxers, all testing their disciplines against each other in real time. But wrestlers? Wrestlers were quietly dominating. They controlled where the fight happened. Stand-up striker wants to throw hands, wrestler takes him down. Jiu-jitsu guy wants to grapple, wrestler decides when and how that happens. Kerr had that base, and he had something else, freakish strength and a personality that could switch into pure aggression when needed. He entered the MMA world through the UFC's early tournaments in the mid-90s, but his real rise happened in Japan. And this is where the story gets interesting, because Japan's MMA scene in the late 90s was unlike anything happening in America. While the UFC was getting banned in states and fighting for legitimacy, Japan embraced MMA as spectacle. Organizations like Pride Fighting Championships turned fighters into rock stars. The production values were insane, elaborate entrances, massive crowds, pyrotechnics. They built stadiums that held 50,000 screaming fans. Fighters walked out to full orchestras. The Japanese treated MMA like professional wrestling met legitimate sport, and they paid accordingly. Kerr could make serious money in Japan, the kind of purses that would take years to accumulate in America's struggling MMA scene. Kerr fought in the Pride and Rings promotions, and he was terrifying. 6'1", 255 pounds of muscle, with a wrestling pedigree that let him ragdoll opponents. His nickname, the Smashing Machine, wasn't hyperbole. He'd slam people onto the mat with sickening force, then ground and pound them into oblivion. This was before modern MMA's refined striking and defensive grappling. Kerr could grab you, lift you, and make you regret every decision that led to that cage. In 2000, he won the Pride Grand Prix 2000 Finals tournament, cementing his status as one of the sport's elite heavyweights. He beat legitimate killers, guys like Igor Vovchanchin, a Ukrainian fighter with hands like cinder blocks. That victory should have been the peak, the moment where Kerr transitions from contender to legend. Instead, it was the beginning of the end, because while Kerr was winning in Japan, he was losing a different fight at home. Opioids, pain medication that started as treatment for fighting's inevitable injuries and metastasized into addiction. And this is the story Safdie's film really tells, not the triumphant sports narrative, but the collapse. Here's what people outside MMA don't understand about the sports outlaw era. There was no safety net. Fighters weren't employees with health insurance and retirement plans. They were independent contractors who got paid per fight. And if you got hurt, that was your problem. No league-mandated medical care. No rehabilitation programs. You had injuries? You either fought through them or you stopped getting booked. And fighting through injuries meant pain, and managing pain meant medication. Kerr's body was breaking down. His knees, his back, his hands, all accumulating damage from years of wrestling and fighting. He needed to function, needed to train, needed to compete. Pills helped. Then pills became necessary. Then necessary became dependency. By the time anyone recognized it as a problem, Kerr was deep in addiction, and the sport he dominated was chewing him up. The real turning point and the emotional core of both the documentary and Safdie's film is Kerr's relationship with Dawn Staples. She wasn't a ring girl or a groupie. She was a mortgage broker from California, someone with a completely normal life who got pulled into Kerr's orbit and couldn't escape. Their relationship was codependent from the jump. She wanted to save him, he needed saving, and neither understood that dynamic was poison. Dawn watched Kerr spiral. She saw the pills, the mood swings, the paranoia that comes with addiction. She tried interventions, ultimatums, support. Nothing worked. Kerr would promise to quit, then relapse. He'd have a good week, then disappear into his addiction for days. And through it all, he kept fighting, kept training, kept pretending he had control. The 2002 documentary, also called The Smashing Machine, captured this in real time. Director John Hyams embedded with Kerr for months, filming his preparation for Pride fights and his unraveling personal life. It's uncomfortable viewing. You watch a world-class athlete inject himself with painkillers. You see Don crying, begging him to get help. You witness Kerr's desperation as his body stops responding the way it used to, as younger fighters start beating him, as the money dries up. One scene in that documentary haunts everyone who's seen it. Kerr in a hotel room after a loss, sobbing uncontrollably while Dawn tries to console him. It's not movie crime, it's the full body breakdown of someone whose identity is wrapped entirely in being the best, and that identity just shattered. He's not just sad about losing the fight, he's mourning the death of who he thought he was. That documentary was raw and devastating, but it was also limited. It showed you the wreckage without fully exploring how Kerr got there or what happened after. It was a snapshot of rock bottom without context or aftermath. Safdie's film tries to complete that picture, to show the rise before the fall, to explore the psychological patterns that led to addiction, to give Dawn her own narrative instead of just being the worried girlfriend in the background. Now, about that late 90s MMA context, because it's essential for understanding why Kerr's story unfolded the way it did. MMA in the 1990s existed in a legal and cultural no man's land. The UFC started in 1993 as essentially a spectacle, minimal rules, no weight classes, no time limits. It was marketed as no holds barred, and early broadcasts featured brutal knockouts and submissions that made it look like human cockfighting. Senator John McCain famously called it human cockfighting and lobbied to get it banned. It worked. By 1997, the UFC was banned from pay-per-view in many states. No major cable companies would carry it. It was underground, operating in places like Iowa and Louisiana, where regulations hadn't caught up. This created a weird ecosystem. The sport was simultaneously growing and dying. Die-hard fans loved it. This was real fighting, the ultimate test of martial arts effectiveness. But mainstream America was horrified. It looked barbaric because, frankly, it kind of was. Early UFC had no rounds, no judges, no way to win except knockout, submission or corner stoppage. Fighters could kick downed opponents in the head. Small joint manipulation was legal. It was chaos. Meanwhile, Japan had the opposite approach. They saw potential for spectacle and legitimacy. Pride FC launched in 1997 with professional production, better rules, though still more permissive than modern standards, and serious money. They signed the best fighters from around the world, including many Americans who couldn't make a living in the UFC's struggling American market. Pride shows were events. Massive productions broadcast on mainstream Japanese television, attracting viewers who'd never watch UFC's grainy pay-per-view broadcasts. This split created opportunities for guys like Kerr. Fight in America for peanuts, while politicians try to kill your sport, or go to Japan where you're treated like a gladiator and paid accordingly. Easy choice. But it also meant long stretches away from home, cultural isolation, and an environment where substance use wasn't monitored or discouraged. Japan's MMA scene had a darker side too. Yakuza involvement was an open secret. Organized crime had fingers in promoting, gambling, and fighter management. Fights were occasionally fixed. Steroids were rampant and unpunished. You could show up and hands to your eyeballs and nobody would test you. This wasn't sport in the clean, regulated sense. It was entertainment with real violence, and the line between legitimate competition and worked spectacle was deliberately blurry. Kerr thrived in this environment initially because his wrestling base was perfect for the rule set. Pride allowed soccer kicks and stomps to downed opponents, devastating weapons for a wrestler who could take you down at will. He didn't need sophisticated striking. He'd clinch, slam, and finish with ground strikes. Simple, brutal, effective. But the sport was evolving. By the early 2000s, fighters were cross-training seriously. The wrestler only approach was getting countered by better takedown defense and submission games. Strikers learned sprawl techniques. Jiu-jitsu practitioners developed better scrambles. Kerr's style dominant in 1999 was outdated by 2002, and his body couldn't adapt because his body was failing. The injuries weren't flukes. MMA destroys fighters faster than almost any sport. You're absorbing head trauma, joint damage, soft tissue tears, all the worst elements of combat sports combined. Boxers have it bad, but they're only worried about punches. MMA fighters deal with punches, kicks, knees, elbows, and the bone-crunching impact of being slammed onto a mat repeatedly. Kerr accumulated years of this damage in a compressed period, and there was no medical infrastructure supporting him, so he medicated. Painkillers let him train through injuries that should have sidelined him. They let him compete when his body was screaming for rest, and then they trapped him in a cycle. Take pills to fight to earn money to buy pills, need pills to fight again. Dawn entered this nightmare in progress. By most accounts, she genuinely loved Kerr and wanted to help, but she was wildly unprepared for the reality of being with an addicted professional fighter. This wasn't a boyfriend with a drinking problem. This was a 255-pound man whose brain chemistry was hijacked by opioids, whose sense of self was tied to physical dominance, and whose career was collapsing in real time. She wanted to save him. He was unsavable unless he wanted to save himself. And he didn't. Not consistently, not enough. Their relationship became the story because it was the most visible manifestation of Kerr's decline. The fight showed his physical deterioration. Dawn showed his emotional destruction. Watching them together was watching two people drown while clinging to each other, neither strong enough to pull both to shore. By 2003, Kerr's career was effectively over. He'd had losses, injuries piling up, and his addiction was undeniable. He attempted comebacks over the years, fighting sporadically into the 2000s and even as recently as 2009, but the dominance was gone. The guy who smashed Igor Vovchanchyn was now getting out-wrestled by fighters who'd studied his tape and learned his patterns. His body wouldn't respond. His mind was clouded by years of substance abuse. The tragedy of Mark Kerr isn't that he lost. Every fighter loses eventually. It's that he lost himself, the person behind the fighter, the human being with thoughts and fears and potential beyond violence. MMA became his entire identity, and when that identity crumbled, there was nothing underneath to hold him up. Just pills, pain, and a girlfriend who loved him but couldn't fix what was broken. This is the story Benny Safdie decided to tell. Not the sanitized sports movie version where the hero overcomes adversity through determination and training montages. The real version where talent and work ethic aren't enough, where addiction doesn't care about your accomplishments, where love is present but powerless. And he cast Dwayne Johnson, the most successful, most stable, most brand-conscious star in Hollywood, to play a man who represents the complete opposite of everything The Rock stands for. That decision, that bizarre, brilliant, risky decision, is what transforms the Smashing Machine from biopic into something else entirely. Something worth examining frame by frame. Safdie opens the Smashing Machine not with a fight, but with silence and pain. We are in a bathroom, harsh fluorescent light, the kind that makes everyone look sick. Mark Kerr is standing at a sink, staring at his reflection, and you can immediately tell something's wrong. His eyes are glassy. His breathing is controlled but labored. He is gripping the sink edge so hard, his knuckles are white. This is Dwayne Johnson, but it takes your brain a second to process that fact because everything about his physicality has changed. He is not standing like The Rock. There's no confidence, no swagger. His shoulders are slightly hunched. His jaw is clenched. He reaches into his pocket slowly, pulls out a pill bottle, and the sound design amplifies everything. The rattle of pills against plastic, the twist of the cap, the running water from the tap. He swallows 2 pills dry, no water, and you watch his face as they go down. Relief hasn't hit yet, but anticipation has. Then he looks at himself in the mirror again, and for just a moment, you see something flicker across his face. Shame? Self-awareness? It's gone before you can name it. He turns off the light and walks out, and the film cuts to black before slamming us into a locker room full of noise and bodies. This opening sequence is maybe 90 seconds, and it tells you everything about Safdie's approach. He is not interested in the mythology of fighting, the warrior entering the arena, the gladiator's triumph. He is interested in what happens in the bathroom before the fight, the private moment where the performer prepares his body through chemistry instead of ritual. From there, we jump back. The film doesn't announce it with title cards or obvious temporal markers. Safdie trusts you to keep up. Suddenly, Kerr is younger, looser, training in a gym that looks like a concrete bunker. This is Syracuse, early 1990s, and we are watching him dominate wrestling practice. The camera stays handheld, circling the mat as Kerr takes down practice partners with mechanical efficiency. No showboating, just control. His coach pulls him aside after practice. Short conversation, mostly conveyed through body language and a few key lines. You ever think about trying that cage fighting thing? Kerr's response isn't enthusiasm, it's pragmatism. Does it pay? That's the entry point, not bloodlust or proving himself. Economics. The film compresses time beautifully here, giving us Kerr's early fights in quick succession without dwelling on any single bout. Safdie is not making a traditional fight film where each match gets its own dramatic arc. Instead, he's showing us a pattern. Kerr wins easily, repeatedly, and with each victory, he becomes more confident but also more isolated. The wins come so effortlessly that he stops respecting the challenge. He's too good too fast, and nobody around him can calibrate that success into sustainable development. We see him sign with management, accept his first Japan booking, board a plane alone. The transition to Japan is handled with almost no dialogue. Just Kerr arriving in Tokyo, eyes wide at the scale of everything. The crowds, the production, the cultural gap he can't bridge. He doesn't speak Japanese. His handlers treat him like valuable livestock, transported, fed, prepared for exhibition. But here's where Safdie does something smart. He shows us the seduction of Pride FC. This isn't portrayed as exploitation, at least not initially. The Japanese promotion treats Kerr like a star because he's one. They put him in nice hotels. They arrange press conferences with translators. They pay him more money than he's ever seen. For a wrestler from Toledo who spent his college years broke, this is validation. This is arriving. His first Pride fight gets a full sequence and is breathtaking in its brutality. Safdie shoots it like a documentary crew embedded in the corner. No stylized camera moves, no dramatic angles, just locked off medium shots and handhelds that struggle to keep up with the action. The fight itself is one-sided. Kerr's opponent, a Thai kickboxer with highlight reel knockouts, can't deal with the wrestling. Kerr closes distance, clinches, and slams him with sickening force. The sound design here is crucial. The impact of body hitting mat is loud, percussive, stomach-turning. Then Kerr is on top, throwing ground strikes, and the ref is rushing in to stop it. Victory, but there's no triumphant music, no slow motion celebration. Just Kerr standing up, breathing hard, looking at his hands. The camera holds on his face, and Johnson's performance is already doing something remarkable, showing us a man who's good at something he's not sure he wants to be good at. The post-fight sequence is where Safdie really establishes the film's perspective on success. Kerr's back in the locker room, adrenaline fading, and his hands are swelling. The cutman wraps ice around his knuckles while a promoter counts out cash-literal stacks of yen being placed in Kerr's gym bag. It's more money than he made in his last 5 fights combined. He's staring at it, and you can see the calculation happening. This is the trade-off. Pain for pay. Body for money. His training partner Mark Coleman shows up in the next sequence, and this is where Ryan Bader's casting pays off. Coleman isn't just a friend, he's a mirror. Another wrestler who saw the same opportunity and took it. They train together, push each other, share the grind. Their conversations are economical, full of unspoken understanding. These guys don't need to explain themselves to each other because they are living identical lives. The dialogue sounds natural because Bader knows this world intimately. He is not acting a fighter, he is one. Safdie uses Coleman as a measuring stick. We watch them train side by side, identical work ethic, identical technique, but in fights, Kerr is slightly better, not dramatically but consistently. He wins by decision where Coleman wins by knockout. He controls opponents where Coleman has to survive bad moments. That marginal difference creates separation, and separation creates isolation. The film takes its time building Kerr's ascent through the Pride rankings. This isn't a montage with a pop song soundtrack. It's a series of vignettes, each showing a different aspect of the fighter's life. A training session where Kerr injures his knee and keeps drilling anyway. A night out in Tokyo where he sits alone at a bar, unable to communicate with anyone. A phone call with his mom where he reassures her he's safe while nursing a black eye and split lip. A sponsorship meeting where corporate reps discuss him like a product while he sits silent. Through all of this, Johnson is building something subtle. Kerr doesn't change dramatically, he erodes. Each fight, each injury, each lonely night in a foreign country takes a small piece of his enthusiasm. The fire that drove him to compete is slowly being replaced by obligation. He is successful, but success feels like a trap. He can't walk away from the money, can't disappoint the people who invested in him, can't admit that this thing he is great at might be destroying him. The injuries start accumulating, nothing career ending, just the steady breakdown of a body doing violent work. His knee swells after training, his back locks up, his hands require more and more tape. The film doesn't make a big deal out of this. Safdie just shows you glimpses. Kerr icing joints in his hotel room. Kerr moving stiffly the morning after fights. Kerr taking ibuprofen like candy. Then, casually, almost offhandedly, painkillers enter the picture. A doctor gives him a prescription after a particularly bad training injury. The scene is brief, clinical. Doctor speaks through a translator, explains the dosage, hands over the bottle. Kerr takes one that night because the pain is keeping him awake. It works. The relief is immediate and total. The next morning he wakes up and trains harder than he has in weeks because the pain that was limiting him is gone. Safdie doesn't slap a warning, addiction ahead sign on this moment. He lets it pass like 100 other moments. That's what makes it devastating. This isn't portrayed as a mistake or moral failure. It's logical. Kerr has pain. Medicine removes pain. He can function again. The tragedy is already in motion, but it looks like problem solving. The Pride Grand Prix 2000 tournament becomes the film's centerpiece for this section. This was the real Kerr's peak, winning a single night elimination tournament against murderous raw competition. Safdie structures it almost like a heist film. We are watching Kerr prepare, and the question isn't whether he'll win but what the cost will be. His quarterfinal opponent is a Brazilian jiu-jitsu specialist who everyone expects to submit Kerr. The pre-fight prep shows Kerr and his team drilling submission defense for weeks. The actual fight is tense, lots of scrambling, both guys working for position, sweat and desperation. Kerr wins by grinding out a decision, but you can see the exhaustion. He's breathing hard, limping slightly as he leaves the cage. Next fight is the same night. Different opponent, same wear pattern. Kerr's corner is working frantically between rounds. Ice, water, pep talks. He wins again, but it's uglier. His cardio is fading. His technique is getting sloppy. He's winning on guts and experience. The final is against Igor Vovchanchin, and Alexander Usyk's presence makes this moment electric. Usyk isn't doing an impersonation. He's channeling the cold, focused violence of elite combat sports. The stare down before the fight is genuinely unsettling. Both men are exhausted, battered, running on fumes and will. The fight itself is brief and explosive. Vovchanchin comes out aggressive, landing heavy shots. Kerr absorbs them, shoots a desperate takedown, and the momentum shift is palpable. Once the fight hits the ground, it's over in minutes. Kerr advances position, claps an arm, and finishes with a barrage of strikes. The referee pulls him off and Kerr just collapses. Victory, tournament champion. The crowd is losing its mind. His corner rushes in. Coleman lifts him up. Flash bulbs popping, the announcer screaming his name in Japanese. This should be the triumphant crescendo. But Safdie holds the camera on Johnson's face, and what you see isn't triumph, it's relief that it's over. Kerr is crying, but they are not tears of joy. They are tears of release, the kind that come when your body and mind can finally stop holding it together. He won, but he's shattered. The post-fight locker room sequence is where the cracks become visible. Kerr is sitting on a bench, alone for a moment, and he's shaking, not from adrenaline, from pain. His knee is twice its normal size. His ribs are bruised. His hands can barely form fists. A trainer brings him ice packs and that pill bottle. He takes two. Then he looks at the bottle again and takes two more. The camera doesn't judge this. It just observes. Kerr closes his eyes and waits for the relief. And when it comes, you see his whole body relax. The pain is chemical now, manageable, distant. He stands up straighter, smiles at a teammate who congratulates him, becomes functional again. This is the peak. Pride champion, top of the sport, paid, respected, and already, if you're watching closely, already lost. The section ends with Kerr alone in his hotel room that night, championship trophy sitting on the nightstand. He is lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, pill bottle within arm's reach. The window shows Tokyo's neon sprawl, millions of people, none of whom know him or care. He's achieved everything he worked for, and it feels like nothing. Safdie cuts to black, and when we come back, we're in California. Time has passed. Kerr is at a coffee shop, and that's where he meets Dawn. Dawn Staples walks into Mark Kerr's life like she's walking into a burning building on purpose. That's how Safdie frames their first meeting. Not romantic, not cute, but inevitable in the worst way. The coffee shop scene is deceptively simple. Kerr is sitting alone, nursing something he's barely drinking, and he looks out of place. Too big for the furniture, too tense for the casual California vibe. Emily Blunt enters frame and immediately the energy shifts. She is not starstruck or intimidated by his size. She looks at him like she's seeing a puzzle she wants to solve. Their conversation starts mundane. She asks if the seat's taken. He says no. She sits. But the dialogue crackles with subtext. She knows who he is. Not because she's an MMA fan, but because her brother watches his fights. She mentions this casually, testing to see if he's the kind of guy who needs his ego stroked. He's not. He seems almost embarrassed by the recognition. Blunt plays Dawn with this interesting mix of confidence and underlying damage. She's successful, mortgage broker, owns her place, has her life together on paper, but there's a current of loneliness running underneath. The way she maintains eye contact just a beat too long. The way she laughs at things that aren't quite funny. She's looking for something broken she can fix, and Kerr is radiating broken. They talk for maybe 5 minutes of screen time, but Safdie lets the scene breathe. No rush to the plot. Just two people who recognize something in each other. Mutual damage presenting as attraction. When Kerr asks if she wants to get dinner sometime, there's hesitation in his voice. Not because he doesn't want to, but because part of him knows this is a bad idea. She says yes anyway. Their early dates are shown in fragments rather than full scenes. A dinner where Kerr barely eats and Dawn does most of the talking. A walk on the beach where he opens up slightly about fighting and she listens like every word matters. A night at a place where things get physical and Safdie shoots it with uncomfortable intimacy. Not gratuitous, but not sanitized either. These are two people using physical connection to avoid emotional honesty. Dawn doesn't see the pills at first. Kerr is careful, keeping them hidden, taking them privately. But there are signs. He disappears to the bathroom frequently. His mood swings wildly, sometimes engaged and present, sometimes distant and irritable. He sleeps erratically. She notices these things but doesn't connect them yet. She thinks it's the stress of training, the pressure of fighting. She thinks she can help. The relationship accelerates fast, which feels realistic for people this damaged. Within what seems like weeks, she's attending his training sessions. Within months, she's traveling with him to Japan. The film doesn't explicitly state this timeline. Safdie just shows you their lives merging, boundaries dissolving, codependency forming. There's a sequence where Dawn watches Kerr train, and you see her reaction to the violence of it for the first time. He's drilling ground and pound with a partner, and the impacts are ugly. She flinches. One of the other fighters notices and says something encouraging. He's the best, don't worry. But she's not worried about him losing. She's worried about what this is doing to him. That night, she sees the pills. He thinks she's asleep, but she's watching from the bed as he sits on the bathroom floor, back against the tub, taking 3 pills at once. She doesn't confront him. Not yet, but her face shows the realization landing. This is worse than she thought. When she finally brings it up, the fight is explosive. Not physically. Safdie is careful never to make her violent toward Dawn, but emotionally devastating. He deflects, minimizes, gets defensive. It's medication, Dawn. For pain. You want me to fight injured? She pushes back. This isn't about pain management. You're taking them when you're not even training. He shuts down, walks away, and she's left alone wondering if she just made things better or worse. The pattern establishes itself. Dawn tries to control his medication intake. Kerr resents the surveillance. He hides pills in different spots. She finds them. They fight. He promises to cut back. He doesn't. She believes him anyway because she needs to. The addiction is driving the relationship now, not love or compatibility. They are trapped in this cycle where she's trying to save him and he's trying to convince her he doesn't need saving, and both are lying. Safdie intercuts this domestic deterioration with Kerr's fighting career beginning to slide. His next fight in Japan isn't against a pushover. It's against a younger, faster heavyweight who studied his takedown patterns. We watch Kerr struggle to close distance. His opponent sprawls on his shots, circles away, lands kicks to his legs. Kerr's getting frustrated, burning energy chasing a fight he can't secure. In the corner between rounds, his coaches are urgent. You need to time the shot better. He's reading you. But Kerr's cardio is compromised. The pills affect his conditioning. His body isn't processing oxygen efficiently. He's sucking wind, and there are still 2 rounds left. The fight goes the distance, and Kerr loses a decision. Not a brutal knockout, just a clear, undeniable loss. The judges' scorecards aren't controversial. He got outworked. In the locker room afterward, Don tries to console him, but he's inconsolable. Not angry, empty. Johnson plays this moment with devastating stillness. No tears, no rage. Just a man staring at nothing while his girlfriend rubs his back and says meaningless comforting things. That night, he takes more pills than usual. Dawn sees but doesn't stop him. What's she going to do? Police, a 255-pound man who's just had his identity challenged? She's learning the horrible lesson of loving an addict. You can't stop them. You can only watch. The film structure gets more fragmented here, reflecting Kerr's mental state. Scenes don't flow linearly, they jump. Kerr training, but his technique is sloppy. Dawn at work, distracted, taking phone calls from him that seem urgent but aren't about anything. Kerr at a doctor's office, getting another prescription. Dawn finding empty bottles in the trash. A particularly brutal sequence shows Kerr trying to quit cold turkey. Dawn's idea? Just stop taking them, get through the withdrawal, start fresh. We see 3 days of hell. Day 1, he's irritable but functional. Day 2, he's sick, sweating, nauseous, pain returning everywhere. Day 3, he's in full withdrawal, shaking, unable to sleep, mentally fractured. Dawn stays with him, trying to help, but she's terrified. This isn't her expertise. She's a mortgage broker watching someone detox on her couch without medical supervision. On day 4, he takes the pills again. Not because he's weak, because withdrawal from opioids without medical help can be dangerous, and his body is demanding the drug. Dawn doesn't fight him. She just cries quietly while he swallows them, and the relief washes over his face. This is when their relationship shifts from partnership to caretaking. Dawn stops being his girlfriend and becomes his monitor, his manager of chaos. She's scheduling his training, talking to his management, fielding calls from promoters. She's trying to control everything around him because she can't control the one thing that matters, his addiction. Mark Coleman reappears, and there's a scene between him and Kerr that cuts deep. They're at a gym, just the 2 of them, and Coleman is direct. "You're not right, man. Everyone can see it." Kerr tries to deflect, but Coleman won't let him. "I know about the pills." Pause. "I'm not judging, but you're gonna get hurt, not just lose hurt. These young guys are killers, and you're not yourself." Kerr's response is heartbreaking in his denial. "I'm fine. I just need to train harder." Coleman looks at him like he's watching someone die slowly. "That's not the problem, and you know it." The scene ends with them training anyway, because what else can they do? This is what they know. This is the language they speak. Dawn and Coleman have a scene too. She approaches him for advice, and he's honest in a way that's both helpful and crushing. "I can't fix him. You can't fix him. Only he can fix him. And fighters are stubborn as hell. We'd rather die than admit we're not invincible." She asks, "So what do I do?" He doesn't have an answer. Kerr's next fight is a disaster. His opponent is Antonio Rodrigo Nogueira, a Brazilian jiu-jitsu specialist who's become one of the sport's most dangerous heavyweights. Safdie shoots the pre-fight locker room with handheld claustrophobia. Kerr is taping his hands himself because Dawn convinced his team to not let anyone check his reps in case she needs to talk to him alone. She's trying to maintain control even in the cage environment. The fight starts, and within seconds you can tell Kerr isn't right. His movement is off. His reactions are a split second slow. Nogueira lands a jab, and Kerr's head snaps back harder than it should. He shoots a desperation takedown, gets it, but Nogueira is comfortable on his back. They scramble, and suddenly Nogueira has an arm. Triangle choke locked in. Kerr fights it, tries to posture up, but the position is tight. 15 seconds. 20. His face is turning red. 30 seconds. The referee is watching closely. 40 seconds. Kerr's not tapping. His consciousness is fading. 45 seconds. The referee steps in and stops it. Technical submission. Kerr never tapped. He went out rather than admit defeat. The aftermath is worse than the loss. Kerr comes to, realizes what happened, and you can see something break behind his eyes. Dawn is at cage side, looking horrified. He climbs out, waves her off when she tries to approach, and walks straight to the locker room. She follows. The camera follows. In the locker room, Kerr is sitting on a bench, head in his hands. Dawn is trying to talk to him, but he is not responding. She's saying his name, touching his shoulder, and he finally explodes, not physically at her, but at the wall. He punches it hard enough that his hand comes away bloody. Then he breaks down completely. This is the scene from the original documentary, the full body sobbing, the collapse of identity. Johnson doesn't hold back. This isn't movie crying. This is primal anguish. Dawn holds him while he falls apart, and Blunt's performance here is equally devastating. She's not trying to fix it with words. She's just there, absorbing his pain because she doesn't know what else to do. Later that night, in the hotel room, we see the full extent of the addiction. Kerr takes pill after pill, more than you can count. Dawn tries to stop him, physically grabbing his hand, and he pulls away. Not violently, but firmly. I need these. You don't understand. I need them. His voice is broken. She's crying. They're both trapped. The film's midsection ends with a moment of awful clarity. Dawn is on the phone with her mother, lying about how things are going. Yeah, we're good. He's training well. Fighting's great. The camera pulls back and we see she's in the bathroom of their hotel room, door closed, Kerr passed out on the bed visible through the crack. She's whispering so he won't hear. And when her mom asks when she's coming home, she says, soon, with zero conviction. Safdie cuts to Kerr's face, eyes closed, breathing shallow. The pills are on the nightstand. Dawn's muffled voice is barely audible through the door, and the film holds this image. A man who had everything losing, everything, while the person who loves him watches helplessly. This is rock bottom, but the film isn't done falling. Rock bottom has a basement, and Safdie takes us there without flinching. The months after that, Nogueira lost blur together intentionally. Time becomes elastic when you're watching someone disintegrate. Days bleed into weeks. Fights get scheduled and cancelled. Kerr shows up to training or he doesn't. Dawn tries interventions that fail before they start. The pills are now the only constant. Everything else is chaos orbiting around chemical dependency. There's a sequence where Dawn physically takes Kerr to rehab, not a fancy celebrity facility, a standard outpatient program in California where the waiting room has plastic chairs and fluorescent lights that buzz. They sit together, surrounded by other people's damage, and when the intake counselor calls his name, Kerr stands up and walks right back out the door. Dawn chases him to the parking lot. Mark, please, you need help. He turns on her and Johnson's face is a mask of exhaustion and resentment. I don't need this. I need to train. I have a fight in 6 weeks. You don't have a fight. They cancelled it. Your manager called yesterday. The information lands like a body shot. He didn't know, or he knew and forgot. The pills are affecting his memory now, creating gaps where important information should live. He stands there in the parking lot, processing, and Dawn watches the last bit of denial crack, but he still doesn't go back inside. Instead, we get a hotel room conversation that night where they attempt honesty for maybe the first time. Dawn asks him directly, why are you doing this to yourself? And Kerr finally gives her something real. Fighting was the only thing I was ever good at. Wrestling, then MMA. I could control people, impose my will, make them do what I wanted through strength and technique. That feeling, being the best in the world at something, he trails off, searching for words. And now these kids are faster, better trained. My body doesn't work right. The knee, the back, everything hurts all the time. But if I take the pills, I can still train. I can still function. Without them, I'm just a busted up ex-fighter with no other skills. Dawn's response cuts through. With them, you're not a fighter at all. You're an addict who used to fight. Silence. He has no counter-argument because she's right. The film structure fractures further. Safdie starts using jump cuts within scenes. Kerr talking to his manager. Then suddenly, it's 3 hours later and the conversation's different. Dawn at her office, then home, then back at the office with no sense of how much time passed. This isn't stylistic flourish, it's perspective. When you're living with an addict, time stops being linear. It's just a series of crises and lulls with no narrative coherence. Kerr attempts another comeback fight, and it's painful to watch. His opponent is a relative unknown. Exactly the kind of matchup a fading fighter takes to rebuild confidence, should be winnable. But from the opening bell, Kerr looks lost. His timing is off by entire seconds. He shoots a takedown into a knee that lands flush on his face. Blood immediately. The fight continues and he's getting beaten up by someone who shouldn't be able to touch him. His corner stops it after the second round. Not the referee, his own team. They've seen enough. Kerr doesn't even argue. He just sits on the stool, blood streaming from his nose, while his cut man works frantically. Dawn is watching from the crowd, and Blunt's face shows something new, not fear or sadness, but resignation. She's done hoping this will get better. The locker room scene is silent except for the sound of running water. Kerr is in the shower, still in his fight shorts, just standing under the spray. Dawn is leaning against the wall outside, arms crossed, deciding something. When he finally emerges, she's made up her mind. I can't do this anymore. He looks at her, water dripping from his hair, and nods. Not begging her to stay, not arguing, just acknowledging reality. They are killing each other slowly, and one of them has to walk away. But she doesn't leave. Not yet. Because addicts and the people who love them don't make clean breaks. They make clicks and compromises and temporary separations that become prolonged agony. Dawn moves out of their shared apartment but still answers his calls, still shows up when he says he needs her, still enables while believing she's helping. There's a devastating phone call scene shot in split screen. Kerr on one side, calling from a gym, voice slightly slurred. Dawn on the other, at her office, trying to focus on work. He's rambling about making a comeback, getting clean, turning everything around. She's barely listening, giving automatic responses. That's great, Mark. I'm proud of you. Call me later. Both of them performing a script they've acted out dozens of times. When she hangs up, her coworker asks if she's okay. I'm fine, she lies, and the camera holds on her face long enough to show the crack in the mask. She's not fine. She's drowning. And the person drowning her thinks he's reaching for a life preserver when really he's pulling her under. Mark Coleman has one final scene with Kerr, and it's brutal in its honesty. They're at a diner neutral ground, and Coleman lays it out. I can't watch you do this anymore. I love you like a brother, but I can't be part of this. When you're ready to get clean, really clean, call me. Until then, I'm out. Kerr's response is defensive anger. You think you're better than me? You think you don't have your own demons? I never said that. But my demons aren't killing me in public. Yours are. Coleman leaves cash on the table and walks out. Kerr sits alone and the scene extends uncomfortably long. Johnson just sits there, no big acting moment, just a man alone in a booth realizing he's burned his last genuine friendship. The waitress eventually asks if he wants more coffee. He says no and leaves. Dawn tries one more intervention, this time with Kerr's mother involved. Safdie handles this carefully. Kerr's mom isn't some stereotype. She's a working class woman from Ohio who's watching her son die slowly and has no framework for understanding addiction. The conversation happens in Dawn's apartment and it's awkward and painful. Mom tries the guilt approach. You're killing me watching you do this. Kerr deflects. I'm fine, Mom. Everyone's overreacting. Dawn tries facts. You've lost your last 3 fights. Your management dropped you. You're broke. Kerr stands up, done with the ambush. This was a mistake. He leaves and the two women sit in the wreckage of their failed intervention. Mom looks at Dawn and asks, how did this happen? Dawn has no answer because there isn't one. It just happened slowly, then all at once. The film's emotional climax comes not in a big confrontation, but in a quiet moment. Kerr is alone in a cheap motel room. Dawn's apartment is off limits now and he's burned through his money. The room is depressing, stained carpet, television that doesn't work, the smell of every bad decision ever made in that space. He's sitting on the edge of the bed, pill bottle in hand, and for a long moment, he just stares at it. This is the decision point. Take more pills, continue the spiral, or stop, face withdrawal, face everything he's been medicating. The film holds on his face, Johnson's performance stripped of everything except raw contemplation. You're watching a man at a crossroads, realizing both paths lead to pain. The only choice is which kind. He opens the bottle, pours the pills into his hand, counts them. There are enough here to make everything stop. Not a dramatic suicide scene, just the mathematical reality of overdose. He looks at them for what feels like minutes of screen time, and Safdie doesn't cut away. You're trapped in this moment with him, and it's excruciating. Then he puts them back in the bottle, not all of them. He takes to his usual dose and returns the rest. Not sobriety, not recovery, just survival for another day. Dawn's breaking point comes separately and lands even harder. She's at work trying to close a mortgage deal and her phone rings. It's a hospital. Kerr overdosed, not intentionally, just taking too many while too messed up to remember he'd already taken some. They pumped his stomach. He's stable. She needs to come pick him up. She hangs up the phone, excuses herself from the meeting, and walks to her car in the parking garage. Once inside, alone, she screams. Not crying, not breaking down, just a pure primal scream of rage and helplessness. It's cathartic and horrible, and one of Blunt's best moments in the film. She drives to the hospital, finds Kerr in a recovery room, groggy and embarrassed. The doctor gives her discharge instructions in a monotone that suggests he's done this speech 1,000 times for 1,000 different addicts. She nods along, signs papers, helps Kerr into the car. The drive is silent until she pulls over on a random street, parks, and turns to face him. I love you. I need you to hear that because what I'm about to say might not sound like it. I love you, and I can't save you. I've tried everything. I've begged, threatened, researched, planned, sacrificed. None of it works because you don't want to be saved badly enough. And I can't keep lighting myself on fire to keep you warm. Kerr is crying now, quietly, and Johnson plays it with devastating simplicity. No big sobs, just tears running down his face while he nods. So here's what happens. Dawn continues. I'm taking you to an actual rehab facility, not outpatient, real residential treatment. You're going to check in and you're going to stay for however long they say. And I'm not going to visit, call or check on you because if I do, you'll convince me to get you out or I'll convince myself you're better when you're not. You need to do this alone. Okay, he whispers. And if you walk out before you're discharged, I'm done. Forever. No more chances. Do you understand? Yes. She drives him to a facility. Safdie shows the actual intake process, the paperwork, the goodbye in the lobby. Dawn hugs him, holds on maybe a second too long, then turns and walks away. She doesn't look back. The camera stays with Kerr, watching Dawn disappear through the exit doors, and the weight of that departure crushes him visibly. The film time jumps forward 3 months, with no explanation. We don't see Kerr's rehab experience because that's not the story Safdie is telling. When we return, Kerr is out, living in a sober living facility, attending meetings, working a part-time job at a sporting goods store. He looks different. Not just physically cleaner, but lighter somehow. The weight of constant deception is gone. He's not the dominant fighter anymore. That person's gone forever. But he's functional, present, human. Dawn agreed to meet him for coffee. The scene parallels their first meeting, same coffee shop even, and the circularity is intentional. They sit across from each other and there's warmth there, but also distance. They're not getting back together. That ship sailed and sank. Kerr actually apologizes, taking accountability. Dawn accepts but doesn't absolve him. She tells him about her life now, the therapy she's in, the boundaries she's learning to maintain. It's cordial and sad and mature in a way their relationship never was. They hug goodbye in the parking lot and both know it's the last time, not from anger, from necessity. They represent each other's worst chapters and moving forward means letting go. The film's final image is Kerr at an MMA gym, not training but teaching. Kids class. He's showing them basic wrestling technique, patient and present. One kid asks, "Were you ever a fighter?" Kerr smiles. "A long time ago?" The kid seems satisfied with that answer. The camera pulls back slowly as Kerr continues teaching, and the film cuts to black without fanfare. No epilogue cards. No "where are they now?" updates. Just the implication that recovery isn't a destination. It's daily work, and Kerr's doing it. That's the story. Not redemption, not triumph, just survival, barely, and the thin hope that survival can become something more. Let's talk about what Dwayne Johnson does in this film, because it's genuinely shocking. The Rock. And let's be real, he's The Rock. Even when credits say, Dwayne Johnson has spent 2 decades building the most bulletproof brand in Hollywood. He's the guy who turns franchises around. He's the reason Fast 5 became a billion-dollar phenomenon instead of a car movie that peaked with Tokyo Drift. He's charisma weaponized, the human embodiment of positive energy and commercial appeal. His Instagram is motivational speeches and workout videos and tequila promotions. His movies are fun. His characters are invincible. His persona is everyone's hardworking best friend who also happens to be carved from granite. And in The Smashing Machine, he destroys all of that. Deliberately. Completely. This isn't the kind of transformation where an actor loses weight for a role and we applaud the commitment. This is Johnson systematically dismantling everything that makes him a movie star and rebuilding himself as a character actor inhabiting someone fundamentally broken. is the kind of career risk most A-listers won't take because there's no upside. If it works, you get critical praise but no box office. If it fails, you've compromised your brand for nothing. Johnson knew the math. He did it anyway. Start with the physical transformation because that's the most immediately visible element. Johnson's body is his trademark. The size, the definition, the tattoos framing ridiculous musculature. He's been action figure big since his WWE days, and Hollywood only amplified that. He works out at 4 a.m. His cheat meals are famously extravagant because his base metabolism is superhuman. The man is a walking billboard for discipline and physical excellence. For Kerr, he had to abandon that. Not completely. Mark Kerr was a big dude, 255 pounds of wrestler muscle. But there's a difference between Hollywood action hero big and functional athlete big. Johnson had to shift his training from aesthetics to something rougher, less defined, more mass, less cut. He needed to look like someone who lifts heavy and fights hard but isn't posing for magazine covers. Most significantly, he had to show deterioration. Kerr's body breaks down over the film's timeline, and Johnson's physicality reflects that. Early in the film, his movement is powerful and controlled. The wrestler who can change levels explosively, who generates force from his hips. As addiction takes hold, that power degrades. His posture slouches. His movements become labored. There's a scene late in the film where Kerr is training, hitting pads, and you can see Johnson moving like someone whose body hurts with every strike. The rotation is off. The hip drive is compromised. It's not big acting, it's detailed physical storytelling. He also grew his hair long, which sounds minor but drastically changes his look. The Rock has been bald forever. It's part of the brand. Seeing him with shoulder-length hair, often messy and unwashed in the film's latter half, creates immediate cognitive dissonance. You're not watching The Rock. You're watching someone who happens to have his features. But the physical stuff is just foundation. What Johnson does with his face and voice is what makes this performance remarkable. Watch his eyes throughout the film. Early on, there's alertness there. Kerr is present, engaged, competitive. His gaze is direct. When he looks at opponents, there's calculation. When he looks at Dawn, there's genuine affection mixed with the guardedness of someone who's been alone too long. As the pills take over, the eyes change. They become glassy, unfocused. There are scenes where Dawn is talking directly to Kerr and Johnson plays him as physically present, but mentally elsewhere. The 1,000-yard stare of someone whose consciousness is chemical now. It's unsettling because we are so used to Johnson's eyes being expressive and warm. Here, they're dead zones. His voice drops the charisma entirely. The Rock's voice is a weapon. He can sell anything with that rumbling bass and perfect comedic timing. He knows exactly how to modulate for maximum impact. Kerr doesn't have that skill set. Johnson plays him with a flat Midwest affect, words coming slower, sentences trailing off. When Kerr is high, the speech gets slightly slurred, not dramatically, just enough that you notice he's not sharp. When he's withdrawing, the voice cracks with desperation. There's zero vanity in this performance. Johnson lets himself look terrible, sweaty and shaking during withdrawal, dead-eyed and slack-jawed when high, beaten and bloody after fights. There's a scene where Kerr is crying in a hospital bed after the overdose, and Johnson's face is puffy and red and covered in snot. It's the opposite of movie crying. It's what actual anguish looks like, and it's hard to watch. The vulnerability is constant and uncomfortable. Johnson has made a career of playing invulnerable characters. Even when his characters face adversity, there's never doubt they'll overcome it through strength and determination. Kerr has no such plot armor. He's failing in real time, and Johnson commits to that failure without hedging. Take the locker room breakdown scene after the Nogueira loss. This could have been played as a moment of dramatic catharsis, the warrior pushed to his limit, breaking briefly before finding new resolve. Johnson doesn't do that. He plays it as total collapse, full body sobbing, gasping for air, hands shaking. It goes on for minutes of screen time. There is no dignity in it, no actor showing range, performance. It's devastating because it feels completely real. What's interesting is how Johnson uses his size. Normally, he takes up space. He's the biggest presence in any room, and his characters know it. Here, he makes himself smaller. Watch how Kerr sits, shoulders hunched, taking up less space than his frame requires. When Dawn confronts him, he doesn't use his physical presence to dominate. He shrinks. There are moments where this huge man looks small, and that's entirely Johnson's physical acting. The fight scenes showcase a different kind of commitment. Johnson has done countless action sequences, but those are choreographed to make him look superhuman. The fights in the Smashing Machine are designed to look exhausting and painful. Johnson trained extensively in actual MMA technique, wrestling takedowns, ground positioning, submission defense. The movements are credible because he put in the work to make them credible. But more importantly, he shows the damage. After fights, Kerr is wrecked, eyes on everything, moving gingerly, face swollen. Johnson doesn't reset to action, hero resilience between scenes. The damage accumulates visibly. By the film's final fight, Kerr looks like someone who shouldn't be competing, and Johnson's performance reflects that. He is not fighting with confidence, he is fighting with desperation, and desperation makes you sloppy. The quieter moments reveal the most. There's a scene where Kerr is alone in a hotel room, just sitting on the bed, staring at his championship trophy on the nightstand. No dialogue, no dramatic music, just Johnson sitting there, and you can read everything on his face. The emptiness of achievement, the awareness that he's already past his peak, the knowledge that pills are the only thing making any of it bearable. It's a masterclass in less is more acting. His scenes with Blunt crackle because he's matching her vulnerability. Blunt is one of the best actresses working, and she doesn't suffer weak scene partners. Johnson rises to that challenge. Their arguments feel real because both actors are fully committed to the dysfunction. When Dawn begs Kerr to get help, Blunt is playing genuine desperation, and Johnson responds with equally genuine defensive denial. Neither is performing at the other. They're in the scene together, reacting honestly. The phone call scene, shot in split screen, is a perfect example. Kerr is calling Dawn from a gym, slightly high, rambling about plans that will never materialize. Johnson plays it with the false enthusiasm of an addict, trying to convince someone and himself that everything's fine. Meanwhile, Blunt on the other side is barely listening, giving autopilot responses. Both performances are small and specific and devastating. What Johnson does with physical space and proximity is fascinating. Early in the relationship, Kerr is comfortable with touch holding Dawn, physical affection, presence. As addiction worsens, he isolates physically. Even when they're in the same room, Johnson positions Kerr at distance. When Dawn tries to touch him during arguments, he moves away. His body language screams, "Don't come closer," and it's all actors' choices rather than directorial blocking. The rehab scene where Dawn tells Kerr she's leaving him there could have been played as big emotional confrontation. Johnson underplays it instead. Kerr just nods, cries quietly, agrees. No bargaining or dramatic promises. Just acceptance from someone who knows he's out of options. The smallness of the performance makes it enormous in impact. Post-rehab Kerr is a completely different physical creation. Johnson carries himself differently, upright, making eye contact, present in conversations. It's subtle enough that you might not consciously notice, but the transformation from mid-film Kerr to end-film Kerr is night and day. This version of the character has hope, even if it's fragile. The final scene, teaching kids at the gym, shows Johnson doing something we never see from him: contentment with being ordinary. The Rock plays characters who are exceptional, always. Here, Kerr is just a guy with a job helping kids, and Johnson makes that feel like enough, not defeat, not settling, just life after ego death. It's oddly beautiful. This performance required Johnson to trust Benny Safdie completely. Safdie's aesthetic is unflattering by design, handheld cameras, natural lighting, long takes that expose any falseness in performance. There's nowhere to hide. Johnson had to know that every moment would be scrutinized, that the camera would catch any inauthenticity, and he committed anyway. The risk calculation is worth examining. Johnson's brand is worth hundreds of millions. He's not just an actor, he's a business. His social media following drives projects. His name on a poster guarantees international box office. Taking a role that makes him unrecognizable, unmarketable, and frankly hard to watch could damage that machine. He did it anyway, for a film he must have known wouldn't make money. Why? Maybe he needed to prove something to himself. Maybe years of playing variations on the Rock persona made him hungry for actual acting challenges. Maybe he wanted to be taken seriously as an actor rather than a personality. Maybe he saw Kerr's story and connected with something in it. The pressure of performance, the fear of irrelevance, the cost of being what everyone expects. Whatever the motivation, the result is undeniable. This is the best acting Dwayne Johnson has ever done. It's not close. This performance has more depth, vulnerability, and risk than everything else in his filmography combined. He is operating at a level that frankly seems impossible given his previous work. It's like watching an athlete you thought you understood suddenly reveal an entirely different skill set. Critics noticed. The review specifically called out Johnson's transformation, with multiple publications using words like revelation and career best. Venice Film Festival audiences gave him standing ovations. Industry insiders talked about potential Oscar nominations. None of that translated to box office, but it did something potentially more important. It changed how people think about Johnson as an actor. He's no longer just the action guy. He's proven he can do this level of work, which means future directors and writers might create roles specifically for that capability. The performance expanded his range in the industry's eyes, even if audiences didn't show up. There's something both admirable and tragic about that. Johnson gave everything for this role, delivered the performance of his career, and got critical validation but commercial failure. It's unclear if he'll ever take a risk like this again. The box office numbers might convince him, Jor his team, to stick with the formula that works, and you couldn't blame him. Why risk your brand if audiences punish you for artistic ambition? But for this one film, Dwayne Johnson stopped being The Rock and became an actor. A damn good one, and watching him do it is worth every minute of the Smashing Machines runtime. Emily Blunt could have phoned this in. The supportive girlfriend, the concerned partner, the woman standing by her man, it's a role Hollywood has written 1,000 times, usually with zero dimension. She chose to do something far more difficult, play someone complicit in their own destruction. Dawn Staples isn't a saint. She's not the noble woman sacrificing herself for love. She's damaged goods attracted to other damaged goods, and Blunt understands that from frame one. Watch her entrance in that coffee shop scene. There's something predatory in her curiosity. Not sexually, but psychologically. She sees Kerr's brokenness and moves toward it like she's found something she's been searching for. Blunt plays Dawn with layers that most scripts wouldn't even acknowledge exist. Surface level, successful professional woman, together, confident. One layer down, profound loneliness masked by competence. Deeper still, a savior complex that's really a control addiction, and underneath everything, someone who needs to be needed because being wanted for herself isn't enough. The early scenes between Dawn and Kerr crackle with unspoken damage recognizing itself. Blunt's face does incredible work in those first dates. She's laughing at Kerr's stories, but her eyes are already calculating, not manipulatively, but compulsively. She's figuring out how broken he is, where the cracks are, how she can fit herself into those gaps. It's uncomfortable to watch someone fall in love for all the wrong reasons, and Blunt makes sure you feel that discomfort. Her voice work is surgical. Dawn's natural register is warm, professional, controlled. When she's at work, Blunt uses a specific vocal quality, brisk, competent, the voice of someone who closes deals and manages complications. With care, especially early on, that voice softens. She's trying to create safety, make herself approachable. But listen to how it changes as addiction takes over. The warmth calcifies into forced cheerfulness. The softness becomes pleading. By mid-film, Dawn's voice carries exhaustion in every syllable. The first time Dawn sees the pills, Blunt's performance is a masterclass in restrained reaction. She's watching from the bed, pretending to sleep, and the camera holds on her face as realization dawns. No big moment, no gasp of shock, just her eyes opening slightly wider, her breathing changing almost imperceptibly. You watch her connect the dots, the mood swings, the bathroom disappearances, the erratic behavior. It's all crystallizing in real time, and Blunt shows you the exact moment hope begins dying. What's brilliant is how Blunt charts Dawn's transformation from partner to warden. It happens gradually, scene by scene. She starts asking Kerr about his medication casual questions, seemingly innocent. Then she's monitoring how many pills are in the bottle. Then she's hiding bottles. Then she's accompanying him everywhere to maintain surveillance. Blunt plays this escalation not as villainy but as desperation. Dawn genuinely believes if she can just control the variables, she can save him. The tragedy is watching her become exactly the kind of presence that makes an addict want to use more. The arguments between Dawn and Kerr are brutal and Blunt never pulls punches. There's a fight mid-film where she's screaming at him, actually screaming, face red, crying while she yells, and it's shocking because Blunt typically plays such controlled characters. Here, she's letting Dawn completely lose it, and the rawness is almost unwatchable. This isn't acting angry, this is channeling the specific rage of someone who's given everything and watched it mean nothing. But she also shows Dawn's complicity. There are moments where Dawn enables Kerr's addiction because it's easier than confronting it. She sees him take too many pills and says nothing. She calls his manager to cancel a fight because Kerr's too messed up, then lies to him about why it got cancelled. She is protecting him from consequences, which is just another way of facilitating the addiction. Blunt doesn't soften these moments. She lets you see Dawn making bad decisions with good intentions, and the gap between those things is where the character lives. The scene where Dawn tries to manage Kerr's withdrawal is devastating specifically because of Blunt's performance. She's terrified. You can see it in her eyes, the way her hands shake slightly when she brings him water. She has no medical training, no idea if what she's doing is helping or making things worse. When Kerr is writhing on the couch, sick and desperate, Dawn is hovering uselessly, trying to comfort him with platitudes that mean nothing. Blunt plays the helplessness without any vanity. Dawn is in over her head, and Blunt lets her flounder. Her scenes with Kerr's mother are particularly strong because they reveal a different side of Dawn. She's the one explaining the situation to a woman who doesn't understand addiction, and Blunt plays Dawn as exhausted translator between worlds. She's using terms like substance abuse disorder and treatment protocols, while Kerr's mom is stuck on, can't he just stop? Dawn is patient but barely. You can hear the strain in Blunt's voice, the knowledge that this conversation is pointless but necessary. The hospital scene after Kerr's overdose is where Blunt delivers her most powerful moment. Dawn is sitting in her car after the scream, and when she finally drives to pick him up, her face is completely blank. Not calm blank. Blunt plays Dawn as someone who's moved past emotion into pure function. She signs the discharge papers with zero affect, helps Kerr into the car mechanically. It's only when she pulls over and delivers the ultimatum that emotion returns, and even then, it's controlled fury rather than hysteria. That speech, "I can't keep lighting myself on fire to keep you warm," is iconic now, and Blunt's delivery makes it work. She's not yelling, she's not crying, she's stating facts with the tone of someone who's made a decision and won't be talked out of it. The power comes from restraint. Dawn has screamed and begged and pleaded, none of it worked. So now she's delivering truth without emotion, and it lands harder than any tantrum could. Watch Blunt's face when she hugs Kerr goodbye at the rehab facility. She's holding him, and her expression cycles through a dozen emotions in seconds. Love, resentment, hope, grief, determination, doubt. Then she schools her features into neutrality, pulls back, and walks away. The walk to her car is a single long take from behind, and you can see from her posture exactly how much that goodbye cost. Her shoulders are rigid, her pace is too fast, and she doesn't look back because if she does, she'll turn around. The final coffee shop scene shows Dawn post-recovery, not Kerr's recovery, her own. Blunt plays her as fundamentally changed. The warmth is real now instead of performed. The boundaries are clear. When Kerr apologizes, Dawn accepts without absolving, and Blunt's face shows the complicated calculus of forgiveness without reconciliation. She's genuinely happy, he's doing better, and equally certain they can't be in each other's lives. That duality is incredibly hard to play, and Blunt nails it. What makes this performance exceptional is what Blunt doesn't do. She doesn't make Dawn likable. There are moments where Dawn is manipulative, controlling, and self-righteous. Blunt doesn't sand those edges off. She lets Dawn be flawed and difficult and occasionally infuriating. That honesty makes the character real in a way that a more sympathetic portrayal never could. This is also Blunt's most physically exhausted performance. Dawn isn't just emotionally drained, she is physically depleted. Blunt carries that in her body. The way Dawn moves becomes heavier as the film progresses. Her posture changes. By the third act, even simple actions like standing up or walking across a room look effortful. Blunt is showing you what constant crisis does to a human body. The chemistry between Johnson and Blunt is perfect for this story because it's uncomfortable. They are both incredible actors, but they deliberately never create romantic movie chemistry. Even in early scenes when things are good, there's tension. They're two magnets pushing against each other rather than snapping together. That discomfort serves the story. These people aren't meant to work together, and both actors make sure you feel that. Now, the supporting cast operates in a different register entirely, and that contrast is intentional. Ryan Bader as Mark Coleman brings authenticity that no trained actor could replicate. Bader is a real fighter, a former UFC light heavyweight champion and Bellator heavyweight champion. He's lived the world Kerr inhabited, and it shows in every frame. His physicality in training scenes is legitimate. When Coleman and Kerr are drilling techniques, those are actual techniques executed correctly. When they're talking about fights, the dialogue has a specificity that only comes from lived experience. Bader's best scene is that diner confrontation where he tells Kerr he's done watching him self-destruct. As an actor, Bader is limited. His range doesn't approach Johnson's or Blunt's depth. But in this moment, that limitation becomes strength. Coleman is a straightforward guy delivering a straightforward truth, and Bader's lack of actorly flourish makes it devastating. He is not performing concern, he is stating facts. The simplicity cuts through. Bas Rutten playing himself is genius casting. Rutten is an MMA legend, a former UFC heavyweight champion and one of the sport's most charismatic figures. In the film, he appears in a handful of scenes as a fellow fighter and friend to Kerr. His presence adds texture. You're seeing the actual MMA world rather than Hollywood's approximation of it. Rutten's scenes are brief, mostly in training or backstage at events, but he brings lived-in reality. When he talks about fighting, it's not scripted dialogue, it's how fighters actually talk. Oleksandr Usyk as Igor Vovchanchin is inspired madness. Usyk is a current heavyweight boxing champion, considered one of the best pound-for-pound fighters in the world. He has no acting experience, and Safdie doesn't ask him to act, he asks him to be dangerous. In the Pride Tournament final fight against Kerr, Usyk is genuinely intimidating. His physical presence is different from movie violence. There's a relaxed confidence to how he moves that only comes from people who actually know how to hurt others efficiently. The fight itself benefits enormously from having real fighters involved. Usyk and Johnson, who trained extensively, aren't pretending to fight, they're executing real techniques at slower speeds for camera. The result looks visceral because it is. The takedowns have actual weight. The ground positioning makes sense. MMA fans watching this film can tell immediately that the fighting is legitimate, and that authenticity elevates everything. Roberto Cyborg Abreu as Fabio Gergel, Kerr's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu coach, appears in a few training sequences, and again, the authenticity matters. Cyborg is a legendary grappler, and when he's teaching Kerr submissions defense, those are real techniques being taught correctly. The film accumulates credibility through these small choices, using actual fighters and coaches instead of actors pretending. The supporting cast also includes several non-professional actors playing cutmen, trainers, promoters, and other figures in Kerr's orbit. Safdie has a gift for finding faces that look lived in rather than Hollywood perfect. The people populating this world look like they belong in grimy gyms and backstage areas. There are no models playing background fighters. Everyone looks like they've been punched before. What's interesting is how Safdie directs this mix of professional actors and real fighters. He is not asking the fighters to act in traditional ways. He is putting them in environments they understand and letting their natural behavior fill the scenes. Meanwhile, he is asking his professional actors to meet that naturalism rather than overwhelm it with technique. The result is a unified aesthetic where nothing feels performed. This ensemble approach serves the story's authenticity. The Smashing Machine doesn't feel like a movie about MMA. It feels like a documentary that happens to star Dwayne Johnson and Emily Blunt. The supporting cast is crucial to that effect, grounding the leads' performances in a world that feels completely real. Benny Safdie directing solo for the first time is like watching a tightrope walker work without a net. For years, he and his brother Josh operated as a unit co-writing, co-directing, finishing each other's creative sentences. Good Time, Uncut Gems, Heaven Knows What, all collaborations where the Safdie aesthetic was a merged vision. With the Smashing Machine, Benny's alone and you can feel him leaning into his specific obsessions without compromise. The first thing you notice is the camera never stops moving. Not in a showy Scorsese steadicam way. This is handheld anxiety, the camera as nervous system. The lens is always slightly adjusting, reframing, searching. Even in static scenes, two people talking in a room. There's micro movement that keeps you subconsciously unsettled. Safdie wants you physically uncomfortable, and the camera work achieves that before a word of dialogue is spoken. Cinematographer Paul Gilham, working with Safdie for the first time, embraces natural lighting to an almost pathological degree. Fluorescent overhead lights in gyms cast that sick green-yellow pall over everything. Hotel rooms are lit by practical lamps that create harsh shadows. Training facilities have that industrial overhead lighting that makes everyone look exhausted. There are no movie lights sculpting faces into beauty. This is the world as it actually looks, unflattering and honest. The fight scenes reject every sports movie convention. No dramatic angles, no slow motion glory shots, no inspirational swelling music. Safdie shoots fights like someone documenting an ugly car accident. The camera is at cage level or slightly above, struggling to keep both fighters in frame as they scramble. When someone gets slammed, the impact is sudden and jarring because the camera doesn't anticipate it. You're experiencing the violence at the same speed as the participants. No cinematic buffer. Sound design is equally crucial to Safdie's approach, and supervising sound editor Skip Livesey, who worked on Uncut Gems, returns to create oral claustrophobia. Fights are loud, the crowd noise is overwhelming, cornermen are shouting instructions that overlap and become indecipherable. The impacts of strikes land with sickening thuds. But Safdie also uses silence brutally. After the chaos of a fight, the locker room will be nearly silent, except for running water or labored breathing. The contrast makes both extremes more effective. The ambient sound in quiet scenes is mixed unusually high. You hear traffic outside windows, air conditioning units humming, distant conversations bleeding through walls. It creates a sense that privacy is an illusion. There's always noise, always intrusion. When Kerr is trying to have intimate moments with Dawn, the world keeps intruding sonically. You can't escape into romantic movie reality because the environment won't let you. Safdie's use of close-ups is aggressive and sustained. He'll hold on a face for extended periods, letting you see every micro-expression, every bead of sweat, every moment of discomfort. It's almost confrontational. You can't look away because the film won't cut away. This technique makes the actors' performances even more exposed. There's no hiding behind editing or coverage. When Johnson is breaking down, Safdie's camera is inches from his face, demanding you witness every second. The editing rhythm, Safdie served as editor alongside Ronald Bronstein, is deliberately disorienting. Early in the film, scenes have traditional structure, establishing shots, coverage, clean transitions. As Kerr's addiction progresses, the editing becomes fragmented. Jump cuts within scenes, time skips without warning, continuity breaks that reflect Kerr's deteriorating mental state. You're not just watching his collapse, you're experiencing temporal instability that mirrors addiction's effect on perception. There's a sequence mid-film where Kerr is high, sitting in his apartment, and the editing becomes surreal. He's staring at a television, but we keep cutting between different positions. He's on the couch, then suddenly standing by the window, then back on the couch in different clothes. How much time has passed? Hours? Days? The editing refuses to tell you, and that confusion is the point. Addiction destroys linear time, and Safdie makes you feel that destruction. Color grading is muted and sickly. The palette skews toward greens, yellows, and desaturated blues colors associated with illness and decay. Even outdoor scenes in California sunshine are color-timed to look overexposed and washed out. There is no beauty in this world, no escape into aesthetic pleasure. Every frame looks slightly poisoned, which perfectly matches the story's themes. Safdie uses shallow depth of field obsessively. Foreground elements are in sharp focus, while backgrounds blur into abstraction. This isolates characters visually. They exist in sharp detail while their world dissolves around them. It's a metaphor made literal through lens choice. Kerr is in focus, everything else is losing definition. The aspect ratio is 1.85:1 rather than wider cinematic formats. This creates a more boxed-in feeling, less expansive. Combined with the handheld camera and close-ups, the frame feels claustrophobic. You're trapped in proximity to pain, unable to pull back to comfortable distance. Safdie is making formal choices that eliminate viewer comfort systematically. His direction of actors emphasizes extended takes and improvisation within structure. Johnson and Blunt are working from a script, but Safdie lets scenes run long, encouraging actors to find moments beyond what's written. That diner scene between Dawn and Kerr, where the silence extends uncomfortably, that's Safdie refusing to cut, forcing the actors to live in the awkwardness until something organic emerges. He also uses repetition brilliantly. Certain actions repeat throughout the film. Kerr taking pills, Dawn checking pill bottles, training sequences, phone calls. But each repetition is slightly different, showing degradation. The first time Kerr takes pills, it's quick and private. By the 10th time, he's taking them openly, too messed up to care about concealment. Safdie is charting decline through repeated actions that accumulate weight. The production design, supervised by Sam Lysenko, is aggressively unglamorous. Every location feels real and used. Hotel rooms have stained carpets and outdated furniture. Gyms are concrete boxes with worn equipment. Even nice spaces. Dawn's apartment, for instance, feel lived in rather than styled. There are no carefully curated movie sets. These are actual spaces with history and wear. Safdie also makes interesting choices about what to show versus imply. Kerr's overdose, for instance, isn't depicted. We get a phone call to Dawn, then cut to the hospital after. The actual moment is withheld, making it more powerful through absence. Similarly, we don't see Kerr's time in rehab. It's a 3-month jump that respects the privacy of recovery in a film that's otherwise invasive. Safdie knows when to look away, and those moments of restraint make the unflinching scenes hit harder. His use of music is minimal and specific. Daniel Lopatin, Vaniotrix Point, Never, composed the score, and it sparse long stretches with no music at all, then sudden intrusions of discordant electronic tones that create unease rather than emotion. There are no soaring orchestral moments telling you how to feel. The music, when present, is alien and uncomfortable, perfectly matching the film's aesthetic. Safdie's influences are obvious if you know where to look. John Cassavetes' raw, intimate dramas, the Dardenne brothers' social realist following shots, Alan Clark's unflinching violence, Frederick Weissman's observational patience. But Safdie isn't copying, he's synthesizing these influences into something that feels distinctly his own. The anxiety of Uncut Gems is here, but applied to quieter material. The result is different from anything in his filmography. What's fascinating is how Safdie handles the sports biopic genre. He knows all the conventions, training montages, triumphant victories, inspirational coaches, the big fight climax, and he systematically subverts or skips them. Victories feel hollow. Training is shown as painful repetition rather than inspiring effort. There is no mentor figure offering wisdom. The climactic fight, if you can even identify which one that is, ends in defeat and collapse rather than triumph. This is anti-genre filmmaking disguised as genre. It looks like a sports movie, hits certain expected beats, but refuses to deliver emotional payoffs those beats traditionally promise. It's formally radical while appearing conventionally structured, a trick that makes the film's darkness land harder because you keep expecting traditional uplift that never arrives. Safdie's control over every element, writing, directing, editing, means the vision is unified to an unusual degree. Nothing exists in the film that he didn't explicitly choose. That level of authorship is rare in contemporary cinema, where directors often cede control to producers, studios, or test audiences. A24 gave Safdie complete freedom, and he used it to make something genuinely uncompromising. The Venice Silver Lion for Best Direction was richly deserved. The jury was recognizing not just technical competence but a singular artistic vision executed with precision and courage. Safdie took massive risks, casting against type, rejecting commercial filmmaking conventions, demanding audiences sit in discomfort, and those risks resulted in a film that feels unlike anything else released in 2025. This is what auto filmmaking looks like. One person's complete vision, uncompromised, executed with collaborators who understand and support that vision. Johnson and Blunt trusted Safdie enough to deliver their most vulnerable work. The crew embraced his aesthetic demands. The result is a film that feels authored rather than assembled, personal rather than product. Editing and sound design in The Smashing Machine don't support the film, they weaponize it. Benny Safdie and editor Ronald Bronstein create a rhythm that mirrors addiction itself, erratic, compulsive, inescapable. Cuts aren't just transitions, they're jolts that keep you off balance. The editing starts conventional, then fractures deliberately. Early fight scenes use clean coverage, Wide shots establishing geography, medium shots showing action, tight shots on faces. As Kerr's mental state deteriorates, so does the cutting pattern. Jump cuts appear within dialogue. Scenes end abruptly mid-conversation. Time skips without warning. One moment Kerr's training, next he's waking up fully clothed in a hotel room with no memory of the previous night. This isn't stylistic indulgence. Safdie is charting how opioids destroy linear perception. Hours vanish. Conversations fragment. Cause and effect breakdown. You're experiencing Kerr's cognitive collapse through editorial structure. A 3-shot sequence late in the film shows Kerr arguing with Dawn. Cut to him alone in a car. Cut to him passed out on a bathroom floor. How much time passed between each image? Minutes? Days? The editing refuses to clarify because reality has become unreliable. Fight editing rejects sports movie cliches ruthlessly. No dramatic reaction shots of cheering crowds. No slow motion impact replays. Fights play out in real time with minimal cuts, long handheld takes that struggle to keep up with scrambling bodies. When Kerr takes punishment, the camera stays with him, refusing to give you distance from violence. The Nogueira fight's final seconds. Kerr trapped in the triangle choke, face purpling, consciousness fading. Play in one unbroken shot. 45 seconds of sustained agony that feels eternal. Sound designed by Skip Livesey and team operates on multiple levels simultaneously. Diegetic noise is mixed aggressively high. Jim impacts sound like gunshots. Mitts clacking, bodies slamming canvas, heavy bags chain rattling. Breathing is audible always. During training, you hear Kerr's labored gasps. His coaches clipped instructions overlapping into near incomprehensibility. Fights amplify this chaos. Crowd roar bleeding into referee commands, bleeding into corner frantic shouting. Silence lands brutally after chaos. Post Nogueira locker room, water runs for 90 seconds straight, no dialogue. Just shower spray hitting tile, Kerr's shallow breathing, distant arena noise filtering through concrete walls. The absence of music, absence of comforting soundscape forces you into Kerr's headspace. You're trapped with his silence. Pill-taking moments get hyper-detailed audio treatment. Plastic rattle of prescription bottles, individual tablets clicking against each other, caps twisting with amplified plastic grind, pills hitting tongue, dry swallows, faint gurgle. Safdie lingers on these sounds, making chemical dependency tactile. You hear addiction's seductive ritual. Background ambience creates constant low-level anxiety. Traffic never stops. Air conditioners drone. Televisions murmur through walls. Conversations bleed from adjacent rooms. Even quiet scenes feel populated, intruded upon. Privacy becomes impossible, mirroring how addiction colonizes every space, every moment. Daniel Lopatin's score appears sparingly, always unsettling. No thematic melody you can hum, just dissonant electronic pulses, warped synth textures, frequencies that vibrate in your chest rather than please your ear. Score intrudes during transition moments. Kerr leaving gym, walking city streets, creating unease when visuals try to calm you. Music underscores that escape is impossible. Foley work on fight choreography deserves its own mention. Impacts feel specific to technique. Wrestling slams have deep resonant thud of compressed air. Ground and pound carries fleshy wet smack of knuckles breaking open skin. Kicks landing on legs produce sharp bone-on-bone crack. Every sound effect emerges from months of MMA practitioners recording actual techniques. Authenticity creates visceral response. Your nervous system reacts before your brain processes. ADR is used minimally, almost invisibly. Dialogue feels captured live on location, room tone, echoes, background intrusions, all intact. Only clearest lines got looped, preserving natural speech rhythms. Result, conversations breathe like real life rather than soundstage perfection. Production design by Sam Lysenko serves the soundscape as much as visuals. Locations chosen for acoustic fingerprint, gym reverb, hotel room deadness, diner clatter of cutlery. Concrete bunker gyms amplify every footstep, every mat slap. Hotel bathrooms have that hollow tile echo, perfect for pill rattles, vomiting, crying. Design choices aren't decorative, they're sonic architecture. Costume design by David Klein works in concert with sound. Fight gear produces specific fabric noises, shin guards, velcro ripping, mouth guards clacking teeth, gloves lace tightening. Street clothes shift from functional athletic wear, track pants swish, sneakers squeak gym floors to disheveled desperation, zippers tuck, belt buckles clinking when Kerr stumbles. Clothing becomes percussive element. The cumulative effect of editing sound production design creates sensory overload that mirrors opioid roller coaster. Early film, crisp, rhythmic, control like Kerr's wrestling technique. Mid-film, chaotic overlapping noise, disorienting cuts reflecting early addiction. Late film, exhausted minimalism, long silences punctured by harsh isolated sounds, pills rattling, distant sirens, labored breathing. One sequence exemplifies total integration. Kerr's withdrawal night at Dawn's apartment. Editing, rapid cuts between Kerr writhing, Dawn pacing, clock ticking, pills on kitchen counter. Sound, Kerr's guttural moans layered with Dawn's anxious footsteps, refrigerator hum, street noise filtering through windows. Visuals, harsh kitchen fluorescence, casting long shadows, sweat beading on Johnson's face, Blunt's trembling hands, score, absent, all diegetic. 3 minutes that feel like 30, immersing you in physical reality of withdrawal hell. Safdie's formal rigor extends to pacing. Film runtime 120 minutes but feels longer through sustained tension, shorter through emotional compression. Fight sequences play extended real time. Quiet conversations get space to breathe. Collapse moments, overdose hospital aftermath, rehab goodbye, linger uncomfortably. No scene outstays welcome. None feels rushed. Pacing serves emotional truth over commercial efficiency. Technical craft elevates the smashing machine beyond character study into sensory experience. You're not watching addiction, you're feeling its texture through every formal choice. Safdie proves command of medium rare for American filmmakers working at this budget level. Every element interlocks perfectly, creating film greater than sum of parts. The smashing machine sits you down and asks hard questions about what we value in men, then refuses to give easy answers. At its core, this film wrestles with masculinity's central paradox. Society demands men be strong, dominant, invincible providers, then destroys them when they can't sustain that performance forever. Mark Kerr embodied every cultural expectation of manhood, physical power, competitive success, stoic endurance, until his body failed and those traits became liabilities. Safdie doesn't judge this expectation, he dissects it with surgical precision. Kerr's identity crisis becomes literal. Fighting wasn't just his job, it was his entire ontology. When victories stop coming, when pain becomes unmanageable, when younger men prove faster and more adaptable, Kerr doesn't pivot to new purpose. He spirals because American masculinity provides no infrastructure for that transition. You're the provider or you're nothing. That's the contract. Kerr fulfilled it spectacularly, then discovered the fine print, no exit clause. Safdie frames this through Kerr's relationship with pain. Physical pain he understood. Wrestling taught him to embrace it as information, use it to adjust technique, push through adversity. Emotional pain, addiction pain, existential pain of irrelevance, those were alien. Pills eliminated all pain indiscriminately, creating illusion of control when reality was accelerating collapse. The film suggests modern masculinity confuses pain management with strength, a fatal miscalculation. Dawn's arc reveals the relational damage. She's drawn to Kerr's power initially, but that same power becomes cage trapping her. Her savior complex mirrors cultural expectation that women heal broken men, but Safdie shows this dynamic's toxicity. Dawn doesn't save Kerr, she enables while believing she's helping. Their codependency becomes mutual destruction. Neither can exist healthily while defined by the other. Final coffee shop scene offers no romantic reconciliation, just two people acknowledging shared trauma, then releasing each other. Radical honesty. Redemption arc subverted completely. Kerr doesn't reclaim glory through willpower and training montage. Recovery shown as mundane daily labor meetings, part-time job, teaching kids. No victory lap, no public vindication, just existence. Safdie posits true redemption isn't restoration of former greatness but acceptance of ordinary life. Kerr teaching children wrestling carries quiet grace. He is passing technique without needing to embody it competitively. Purpose found in mentorship rather than domination. MMA itself emerges as flawed metaphor for masculine striving. Late 90s cage fighting promised pure meritocracy. Strongest man wins through superior skill. Reality proved more complex. Bodies break down, styles evolve, luck intervenes. Kerr dominated until environment outpaced him, mirroring how masculinity's rules shift without warning. One generation's invincible warrior becomes next generation's cautionary tale. Film critiques spectacle culture too. Pride FC treated Kerr like rockstar, but Japanese promotions' gladiatorial worship accelerated his downfall. Massive paydays enabled pill purchases. Hero worship discouraged vulnerability. When spectacle ended, man remained damaged, purposeless. Safdie questions whether modern arenas, sports, social media, corporate ladders create same disposable masculinity traps. Isolation permeates everything. Cares alone despite crowds. Crowd cheers victories but vanishes at collapse. Dawn tries bridging isolation but drowns in it. Coleman offers brotherhood grounded in shared experience, but even that bond fractures under addiction's weight. Final image. Kerr teaching children suggests connection possible only when ego relinquished, when mentor accepts diminished status. Hope exists, fragile and hard won. Kerr survives. Dawn escapes. Both continue, scarred but functional. No miracles, no epiphanies. Just persistence. Safdie offers no tidy thesis, no uplifting coda. Just reality. People break, some repair imperfectly, most carry damage forever. Masculinity survives too, evolving into something quieter, less destructive. What lingers strongest is pain's dual nature. Physical pain gave Kerr purpose, information, competitive edge. Chemical pain offered escape, then prison. Emotional pain, unmedicated, unavoidable, finally forced change. Film suggests maturity means learning to inhabit emotional pain productively rather than eliminating it at all costs. The Smashing Machine doesn't celebrate struggle or preach resilience. It observes human frailty with unflinching compassion, then trusts you to draw meaning. Kerr's story becomes universal because every man confronts versions of his crisis, body fails, status slips, expectations unmet. Film's power lies in refusing consolation prizes. No inspirational speeches, no triumphant returns. Just clear-eyed reckoning with what strength costs, what manhood demands, what survival requires. Box office failure amplifies thematic resonance. Johnson risked cultural dominance playing diminished man. Audiences rejected vulnerability from their invincible hero. Same discomfort Kerr felt when supremacy slipped now projected onto The Rock. Film predicted its own commercial rejection. People want spectacles of dominance, not examinations of collapse. Silver Lion victory validated artistry, while theatrical irrelevance proved cultural thesis. Triumph and failure coexist, just like Kerr's championship trophy gathering dust beside pill bottles. Safdie leaves you wrestling, same paradox he explores. Value strength that destroys, celebrate dominance that ends, demand invincibility, then abandon when human frailty appears. That's the genius. Film about cage fighter becomes cage trapping viewer in same existential bind. You leave unsettled, questioning what you celebrate, tolerate, demand from men from yourself. No answers offered, just mirror held steadily until you look.